Action! Welcome to another incredible episode of the Action Podcast. Today, we've got a slate of films. First film will be A Quiet Place Part 1, the prequel to what, Pete?
A Quiet Place?
Yeah, prequel to Quiet Place. The second film we're going to be reviewing is Horizon, an American Saga. This is the Kevin Costner epic Western. We will also be reviewing Kinds of Kindness, the Yorgos film, who directed Poor Things, starring Jessie Plemons and Emma Stone and Willem Dafoe. We'll be reviewing Netflix's Trigger Warning, starring Jessica Alba. And then lastly, Pete will give his take on Bike Riders. He's finally seen it, so we'll get to hear his opinion. You've heard mine, now we get to hear his. So with that, Pete, let's get right into A Quiet Place Part 1, or Day 1, excuse me.
Day one.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, well, we know the first two are incredible. The director, the star of the first two are, a Hollywood power couple, and they make great films together, and separately. I thought Lupita Nyong'o is fantastic in this movie. So this is, of course, is day one of A Quiet Place, and it's what happens when these creatures first arrive on the planet. And Lupita is this terminally ill person who has just basically given up and is just angry, and as you would be if your days were numbered. I thought overall it's a nice movie. I thought it was total wasted opportunity. Like, when you watch the first two, you always wondered about what this day one was going to look like. How did you figure out that you couldn't make a noise? Like, if you survived that, like, how would you have figured that out? And this movie starts and you get 10, 15 minutes in, and you're already invested in the characters because, Lupita's awesome. She's like an Academy Award winner. She's amazing. And she does a great job setting up this movie. She gets knocked out, and then she wakes up, and everyone around her is like, so how did you guys figure that out? Like, it just completely just went on without having to have any, it's the most important thing.
That's a really good point, because that was,
it's the most important aspect of this movie is the quiet.
Yeah. No,
it's in the title of all three.
Yeah, you're totally right. Like, it totally just skipped over. And that was my thing too. Like, you're able to what's the word?
Articulate it.
Yeah, you were able to articulate way better than I was, because I just saw it last night. So, I'm still like collecting my feelings on it, but that was definitely my biggest takeaway from it. Like, wait a second, like, you really did just kind of skim over it. And how did you figure it out? Like, what?
It wasn't even a skim. It was a blatant skip. It was like, well, she got knocked out. She's been out for a day.
Yeah, but you don't see that trial and error of like Independence Day, right? Independence Day worked the whole way through, and they finally, and then they realized, oh, you know what? They're actually just like us, and it was a process. And then this one, yeah, it just jumped to it. It's like, oh, we already know what not to do, and it's like, well, there was zero, like, because remember, the beginning was like all noise and all that stuff, so obviously, like, you wouldn't have figured that out. And then they jump to right away, and it's Dejamon
of Paws of Fury fame.
Yeah, Jimon all of a sudden is like,
he just pops up everywhere. He just like shows up in movies. He's not even credited half the time. He just kind of shows up.
Yeah, and again, it totally jumped to it,
but Joseph Quinn is also in this. He played, and I don't really know him as an actor, but I thought that he gave a really great performance. Lupita, like I said, he was the guy that kind of follows Lupita forever, and then ultimately is the one that I'm not going to spoil it for anybody. There are some really heartfelt moments in this movie. Really emotional acting at times in this movie. and great little sequences. It's definitely worth a watch. And I think if I see it again, I'll probably enjoy it more. I was just like so mad that I mean that's what I was waiting for it. Like I was
Yeah.
waiting to kind of find out what happened. I mean, that's what prequels are for. They explain things that weren't obvious or explained in the previous versions. And they blew it. I thought
Yeah.
this would have been a 10, I think, if they would have done something like that.
Yeah.
But then the goal, the journey, other than surviving, was to get a piece of pizza. Like that was their journey. Like that was the
her
goal.
her journey.
Yeah. Like I didn't care. I didn't care about the
Well,
pizza. I wanted them to escape. I wanted them to survive, and I wanted to know how.
well, no, you kind of already said it though. The whole pizza thing was the fact that, like you're saying, like her days are numbered, and it's like, dude, this is all I want. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I
I
get it.
and that's why I thought the ending worked overall. I'm not gonna spoiler it on that one, but
The ending was fine.
I thought it all worked. I agree. That's pretty much the really thing that limited it. But besides that, I do think it was a great journey. There's definitely a lot of moments, and I love
It's
the
a good,
music. I love,
solid movie.
yeah, the
It's a good,
music. I
solid
thought
movie. It's just
really,
that I would have done it differently.
no, no, no. I think you nailed it because that was the one thing, and I kind of didn't harp on it because I didn't want to take away from the rest of the movie, and so I kind of just skimmed over it. But you articulated it perfectly, and that's what was missing from this film. But I agree with you. Definitely check it out. It is really still. Besides that, I thought it's really well made and definitely worth the watch. It did
And
already.
Lupita's gold. She's always
Yeah,
gold.
it was number one in the box office. It made 52.2 million, and it's the budget is 67 million. So it's already grossed 97 worldwide. So this is going to be a profitable film. Good job. I don't know if we're gonna need another one, but
They'll
maybe
probably do it, and maybe
it would be
they'll
the final
explain
one, I
some
would
more
assume.
stuff.
Well, maybe that like the third one to me would be like the final one, like where if we were to defeat them, that's what it would be. But besides that, I don't know if I need another story in this
Need a
saga.
Bill Pullman speech before going after the aliens.
Yeah, exactly.
That would help.
All right. So ultimately, we both say check it out. Next, and I'm going to start with this one, Pete. I just literally saw this again, but Horizon, Kevin Costner's Horizon, an American Saga, and I think I think for this one, it's very important to watch this with a lens because this to me is very similar to like a Lord of the Rings, where you're just getting started and there's going to be so much more. And so there is definitely a lot of setup. My comp to this movie, and this is an older comp, but they don't make movies like this really. Well, one, Into the West, if you want a modern one, Into the West is that, but that was a series, right? But film
Mhm.
wise, there's a movie called How the West Was Won. This was done in the 50s, and it was done by a lot of great directors. John Ford directed a piece of it. James Stewart's in it. I mean, John Wayne, I believe, even has a role in it. But it's a big collection of a lot of great American actors and directors that created this epic saga of like the American West. And I think this really does fall in line with that. I mentioned this on my little short preview. The first time I watched it, I fell asleep. I didn't realize how much I actually missed. I missed a huge scene, Pete. I missed that entire the first opening battle scene, basically. So I definitely was a little confused, missing a lot of pieces coming out of it. But now that I've seen the whole thing, I'm an absolute fan. Again, I'm a huge Western guy, and I think for what it was trying to do, again, being this really large scale epic Western, I think it absolutely works. I think the music is fantastic. It's got great cinematography. My only issue with the cinematography is that it's not using the 235 anamorphic widescreen, which that's what typically epic Westerns use because you got the real wide landscape, like Tombstone uses that. I don't think this is as good as Tombstone for obvious reasons that Tombstone has a very clear a beginning, middle, and end, and it's really about one character, and then everyone else is supporting. This one, there is no real main actor, and that's the part where I said you got to really watch this with a different lens because this is not going to have your traditional pure narrative of your protagonist and your antagonist, all your staples of writing. This is gonna build up different characters that will all most likely intersect at some point. You would assume we won't know that we don't know that in this movie, but we just have to assume eventually they'll all somehow come together. But again, I saw it twice, and uh,
I don't know how you have an extra 6 hours just laying around.
well, one I saw at 10 o'clock. Don't recommend this movie at 10 o'clock,
No.
but I thought for a 3 hour movie, I thought it moved pretty well. Not perfectly, but I thought it moved pretty well compared to some other 3 hour movies that have been out there. Mainly an Avatar, or I like this movie way better than Avatar. I know I'm probably in the minority in that, but yeah, I'm curious to hear what you think.
Yeah, I don't know. I will have to see it again. And when I was done with the 3 hours and 1 minute, because there's 1 minute after the 3 hours. You couldn't just edit that 1 minute.
I know, right?
And then I saw there's a chapter two, and I'm like, oh my God, this was just chapter one. Like this is like
There's four chapters.
there's 4 chapters. That's 12 hours of time
Yeah.
invested in I'm not a big fan of like, well, we're setting up for future movies and it will all make sense. Like the beauty of epics, especially epics that are going to have sequels or other chapters and stuff, is that like the really good ones are the ones that keep you engaged and riveted, and you understand what's going on. The way they told this story, I mean, it was just there was no foundation to for an audience member like myself, and maybe I'm just not smart like the average audience member, but there was no foundation for me to jump off from and kind of cling to as I'm going on this journey. Like it was like pieces of information were just kind of thrown at you. Next thing you know, you're an hour in, and then Costner finally shows up after an hour, and then he goes away. But none of the stories are really intertwined, other than they happen to be going on at the same time period.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm not even sure, like, even when movies are like they've got all these different characters who aren't connected, but then eventually they're going towards like the same thing, and that's the finale is going to be an interaction between all of them in one spot. I'm not
Yeah.
even sure they're all going to the same place at this point. Like maybe it's just because I was not following it as great as I could. Now
No, there
that
definitely are. They're all going to Horizon. I mean, that's the theme, right?
Yeah, I get it, but Jesus, man, like, the performances are stellar. Um, Sienna Miller, I think, is incredible in this film. I didn't realize it was her at first. Like she looks really young in this movie. Um, and she's a bit older, because she's been around forever. And then, you know, Sam Worthington is great as always. Jenna Malone is really good in this. Danny Houston is good for a few minutes. He's in it. Um, Giovanni Ribisi's in it for like 2 seconds at the very end, but I'm sure that his role in the next chapter is going to be huge. Um,
They end with him.
I will watch this again because I really want to love this movie. I love Kevin Costner more than a lot of people. Like he's in my top 10 of all time of just people that I love in the entertainment industry,
Yeah.
including like Michael J. Fox and you know what I mean? Kirk Cameron, just to name a few.
Yeah.
And I just want to love this movie in the worst kind of way. And the music reminded me of Tombstone a lot at times. Like I definitely caught, you know, sounds and themes, and melodies that were very reminiscent of Tombstone. And I thought for a short
Tombstone
minute,
and Dance of the Wolves, really. I thought
yeah,
it did a nice.
I had to look to see who did it, and it wasn't what's his name from Tombstone. It's this guy John
No, I don't think
Debney.
he's alive. I don't think Bruce Broughton's alive. It's John Debney.
John Debney, who gave us Iron Man 2, he gave us Jungle Book, Greatest Showman, Passion of the Christ. I mean,
Yeah.
this guy's amazing. He's done a million things. 80 for Brady, son. Let's
Yeah.
go. But yeah, it's a good watch if you've got 3 hours and love westerns and don't like to pull punches on stuff, like, because it's very real. You get the sense that you're in this time period. It's beautifully shot. I agree. It should have had to, open it up, those landscapes a little bit more would have, I think, been key. But I
Yeah.
thought the performances, the acting, the imagery, the music, it's crazy. Like, all of it's
It's a
awesome.
classic. It's a classic Western. Like,
It's just like, I just didn't feel like I could just launch from one spot and like grab on and follow a character, a hero, because I couldn't even grab on to Kevin Costner as my hero and go through this. It was just
no, and again, I don't that's why I said it's very important to watch this with a certain lens. And again, I got so much more so much more understanding and really appreciation of the second time. I mean, this is like fine wine or a long good book. I mean, this is not pure blockbuster candy. This is
no, it's almost a Western epic Pulp Fiction in a way, like where
saga.
they just
I mean, it's a saga.
you just take these individual scenarios and they become intertwined,
Yeah.
and then the movie just goes on. Except it's all linear, of course. They don't
Yeah.
do a lot of jumping in this, but I'm gonna watch it again when I have an additional half day off
Yeah.
from life,
No,
and I'll give it a shot.
it really is worth it because I think
Chapter one.
once you kind of just like again like when I went in the second time, uh I was able to just kind of like I don't know focus a little bit more, and then it was like, oh, okay, now I get it. Oh, okay, now I get it. And so unless you're just really locked in the first time, which is I think it's hard to be locked in on a 3 hour movie this dense, because it is denser than your traditional 3 hour movie, because it's again, you're not following one character, you're following three, and you can easily miss a part because it's like, wait, were you over there or were you over there? Like there is a lot to follow. So I think I think it's worth it overall because of just the production design and quality. I will say this, because we do have the box office numbers. It only grossed 11 million on $100 million budget. I don't know if the 100 million is including both chapter and one. That's what I don't know, but it's going to be hard for it to get its money back. But with that being,
No, this is shooting for distribution. This is looking for a home on a platform where somebody can just really just dive into it and watch it at their leisure. They're hoping for a big distribution deal. This is not about theatrical release. This movie, there's
absolutely,
no
and
way.
I think this movie is about cinematic and American history versus let's turn a profit, because Kevin Costner invested his own money into this movie. And so I highly encourage people to see this because there
You
really
should
has not,
support him for sure because he's like the
yeah,
best.
there has not been a movie besides maybe the Avatars that is this exhaustive. But if to me, if you're invested in the Avatar, I mean, I can't see how you're not invested in this, because I think
Real effects, it's proper effects and real people. There's no
by the way,
CGI in this
the
movie.
night shooting in this looks really good.
It's incredible.
There are some
The
really
Indians, the kids who play the Indians are real good as well. I don't know their names off the top of my head, but they're
yeah,
fantastic. It's
yeah,
just great casting, great acting, great everything.
yeah,
It's just not put together the way
a
I
lot of
wanted
great
it to.
a lot of great storylines. Well, like I said, it's difficult when you don't know where it's all going after one movie. After 3 hours, you're still like, where is it? So this is different than your traditional movie. And so you just have to understand that because
It's gambling on the fact that the next movie is going to make it all make sense. And then you're
correct.
telling me there's two more after that.
Right.
Then if I've got to wait after the second one to figure out what's going on, I don't know if
No,
I'm
no,
in it
no.
for three and
Because
four.
remember the second one's coming out in a couple months. It's coming out in August. And so now if they don't do it then I 100% would agree. Like, okay, dude, like you're spreading out way too much.
You
But
want me to invest how much?
yeah, but knowing that the second one's coming out in the end of August, like
Yeah.
I think you can give it a little latitude. And again, I highly recommend it seeing it at least twice. I'm gonna probably see it a third time, to be honest. I
Well,
think
you
this
love
has
westerns.
but I think this has all the elements of great westerns. Like, and again, like some of the attack scene, spoiler alert, the attack scene in the beginning is phenomenal, and one of the excellent scenes that you'll see in a western. Like, it's so well done and vicious and great. And there's another couple great scenes. Kevin Costner has a great scene. We're just getting started. There's a great montage at the end of it where it kind of shows you where it's going, and the music in that montage scene is fantastic.
So
Uh,
good.
yeah, I think there's a lot to look forward to. So again, I highly encourage everybody to check this out. Kinds of Kindness. This is the new film directed by Yorgos Lanthimos. Again, he was nominated for Best Director for Poor Things, and this is his latest venture, starring Emma Stone, Jessie Plemons, William Dafoe, Margaret Qualley. And this is a unique kind of film. It's a film that kind of uses the same characters, but then kind of retells like it how the situation plays out differently. Um, the premise of it is a man seeks to break free from his predetermined path. A cop questions his wife's demeanor after he returned from a supposed drowning, and a woman searches for an extraordinary individual prophesied to become a renowned spiritual guide. This has a 7 on IMDb. I've seen a lot of people's top 2024 lists, and this movie is on many people's best film of the year. And I got to tell you, I don't see it. I don't know why this movie was so like revered. First of all, it's 2 hours and 44 minutes. In contrast, we talked about Horizon, and that's a very enjoyable 3 hours. Is it long? Yes, but it's a greater story that you're in on. Now, obviously, they're way two different films, but I could easily, I've already done it. Sat through Horizon twice for 3 hours. This film was painstakingly agonizing. Like, the beginning of it was at least interesting because it just was odd and different, and you're like, okay, this is interesting. I'm in it. But then it just again, it's not. It's you just don't understand. At least I didn't understand what kind of what was the whole point of it. Like, it's like, okay, cool, but it just didn't grab my attention enough to where I wanted to sit for 2 hours and 44 minutes. And more importantly, why this is so highly ranked with other people. This to me is the classic critic film where audiences are not going to be aboard on this one. And I think if you love the Poor Things, I think maybe you will enjoy this film. But for me, this to me was one of the worst films I've seen. Again, I just simply wasn't entertained and wanted to be there. I stuck through it because that's my job, but yeah, it was tough. I know again, there's probably some film critics that are gonna say, well, oh, I'm just maybe not smart enough to understand it. Like, okay, cool, I'm fine with not being smart enough, because if I'm smart enough to understand it, then I'd rather shoot myself, because sometimes, again, I go to the movies to be entertained, and this just is not entertaining. Again, I like the beginning of it, and it's never really paid out. Nothing really paid off or anything like that, and I just really didn't care about these characters, and this is just not my type of film. And guess what? That is, I guess, also the beauty of films. That's the one thing I will give it credit for, is its originality. and it takes chances and all that good stuff. And so that I applaud, and I do think movies like this should be made because I do think there's an audience for this film. I'm just not that audience, and I'm okay with that. So take that for what it's worth, guys. Again, I think if you like Poor Things, maybe you will like this movie. Um, but I'd rather go see Horizon for a third, fourth, fifth, sixth time than see this ever again. So there you go. Okay, next, Pete. We have
Yay. I get trigger warning.
yeah, you can start off with trigger warning. This is on Netflix with Jessica Alba. Uh yeah,
Yeah. Anthony Michael Hall just coming in. Like he's like as old as I am. And I feel like I look better as
he's way older than you.
like way older.
Yeah.
Hmm. I
Dude, he
mean,
was
maybe
like,
like maybe 10 years older at the most.
yeah, he's in his
Oh, okay. Yeah, but if he's 56, then I'm gonna look stunning at 56. I mean, I look good. Let's be honest.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's got a 4.6 on IMDb. That's not great. It's not a great score. I can see that we talked about this last week. I can see why they made the comparison to like the female First Blood because it does have that sort of vibe in a way, even though she's not a drifter coming out of nowhere. Like she actually grew up in this town or whatever. Um, you know, it's on Netflix, so you can watch it at any time, which is nice. You don't have to go to the theaters and drive there and spend money on gas and
Yeah.
overspend on concessions. So that's nice about this movie as well. Um, there are positives that you can take away from this movie. It's not great, but there are some really cool positive things that you can take away from this movie. One, some of the fight sequences, they're a bit stiff at times, but they're kind of nice and well executed. It's nice to see Jessica Alba kicking some butt and smoking and drinking and just being the opposite of her sort of goody two shoes image
Yeah.
that she portrays in real life. I did like that the biggest aspect of the movie that I liked was the fact that they didn't really make a love interest for her. Like I think that would have kind of taken away from this sort of strong woman, independent vibe that they were going for with this movie.
Yeah.
It's a fine time if you're looking for a nice action movie on a Friday night and you need something to watch. It's a fine movie. It's not great, and there's a reason why it's on Netflix and wasn't theatrically released and
I would think
etc.
yeah, and I would probably just round it up. I think it probably is closer to a five.
It's
I think
fine.
throwing in even a First Blood is terrible. It has nothing at all like First Blood. Um,
Yeah.
because yeah, I don't even want to get in that comparison. I think it's so far off. It's not even worth talking about. I don't think the director did anybody favors in this film, meaning when you watch Scarlett Johansson with Black Widow and you see the choreography and all that, it's one, she's put in the work and it looks great. But then it's also shot a certain way, whether it's sped up a little bit, whether it's the different angles, the cutting, there's multiple ways to increase a good action thing.
This is just very straightforward. Shoot the scene like this. You guys fight, and then
Yeah.
maybe we'll do a cut
But they're
once.
not like my only issue is they're not John Wick level. You know what I mean? Like John Wick level
No
would do
way.
the same thing, but it just worked better. And I again I just feel like
Even Bad Boys has like its thing. Like it has cool
yeah.
stuff that it does, even in non-action
And those are
sequences.
higher
Like,
budgets. Let's obviously you can't compare apples to oranges.
sure,
But
sure.
I just think they could have helped out with some of the choreography, the fight choreography. I think it would have because Jessica Alba has shown that she has that ability. Now she is a little bit older, but again, I think there's ways to help it out and make it look a little bit better, a little bit more believable. I just think some of it was just felt really slow and like she wasn't fast or strong. And I don't think that's necessarily her fault. I think again, like help her out a little bit. So
Yeah.
I'm with you. I really want to give this movie high praise because I do like Jessica Alba, and I liked her character. I think the non-fighting stuff, like you're mentioning, I did enjoy that part. I just wish the fighting stuff was a little tighter. Just seemed a little,
Yeah.
could have been a little tighter, but that's why it's probably a 5 versus a 7,
Right.
All right. Next, we have Pete's gonna review Bike Riders. So I've already reviewed this.
Yeah, I won't spend a ton of time on this. I loved this movie a lot. It it gave me flashes of like Goodfellas at times. It gave me flashes of like you were saying, obviously Sons of Anarchy, just because of the subject matter. Um, I didn't I didn't know anything about this movie going into it, which is great. I always love going to see movies. I knew it was about motorcycle and a club, but that could be anything. You could tell a million stories in that one little thing. Um, I didn't know that the Jodie Comer, is
Yeah,
that how you pronounce her name? Okay.
pretty cool.
It's not Jodie Comer, so that's good. Thank God. Um, I didn't know that she was going to have that heavy of a thick of an accent, and I thought she pulled it off really well. I thought she did a great job. I thought Austin Butler was fine. Um, he just can't get out of that Elvis vibe to save his life.
I didn't
I think this
get that vibe at all.
it's just
I think
it's
it's a
just
you
this.
prop, Pete. At this
It's a
point,
very similar, but it's a very similar enunciation and tone and demeanor. Like it's just all the same. And I think it's dangerous that he might get only these kinds of roles. Um, I hope not, because he's really good, and I enjoy him a lot. The real star of this movie is Tom Hardy. That guy comes in with every role that he ever does, and he's as committed, if not more, than like a Christian Bale. Um, he's just so great. He's one of my favorite actors, and he just does a great job in this movie. You get to see Michael Shannon, who's good for his screen time. Norman Reedus from Walking Dead is in this. He cracks me up. He's really good. I enjoyed this movie a lot, and if you haven't seen it, you should go and see it. The story is great. An up and coming group of motorcyclists who decide to form a club, and how that transforms them into just having it be a hobby into real violence, and what that looks like. I almost wanted it to be 30 to 40 more minutes longer, so I got more in depth on that growth between them being just a club and them becoming a criminal organization. Like, I just wanted more, but I thought it was well done. I would go see it again for sure.
awesome. All right, well, that's going to wrap it up for this episode. Next week on tap, we have Despicable Me 4, and on Netflix, we finally have the 4th installment of the Beverly Hills Cop franchise, Beverly Hills Cop XLF. That will be coming out Wednesday, July 3rd. Looking forward to that one. We have Maxine, which is part of the X and Pearl. Yeah, that trilogy.
This is the third. This is the trilogy. I know that you're not a fan, but I'm a fan, so I can't wait.
I liked X. I didn't like Pearl. So
They're both bizarre. This one, I would imagine, is going to be just as equally, if not more, bizarre.
Yeah. And then third, Sound of Hope, which is based off a true story, I believe, but that's going to be in limited theaters.
I hope so.
And then lastly, it's already out, so you can check it out now, but it's a family affair on Netflix that stars Nicole Kidman and Zac Efron. We'll be checking that out. And, I've not heard good things about it, but we'll give it our fair shake, Pete.
We'll go into it with an open mind.
Yeah. So, and then just make sure you catch our other episodes. We've got Terminator 2 coming out at the end of this week. We've also done Wedding Crashers. We just reviewed on Paul's Old Ass Movie Classics. We reviewed the Defiant Ones, Sidney Poitier film with Tony Curtis. So just make sure you check out other content, and we'll keep making more. We appreciate your love and support. Please make sure you like, share, subscribe. With that, Pete, that is a cut. Thanks, guys.